While American warships patrol the world's most dangerous oil choke point halfway across the planet, a Chinese freight train slices through the deserts of Iran, silent, steady, and unstoppable. The United States is guarding sea lanes. China? China is building an escape route. And this isn't just a train. It's a $400 billion game changer. A railway stretching from the heart of Asia to the ports of Europe, cutting across mountains, deserts, and sanctions like they're not even there. Iran just confirmed the launch date for this new trade superhighway. And here's the real kicker. Stay with us, because what comes next could redraw the map of global power, one steel rail at a time. Back in the 1800s, the British Empire didn't just trade with the world. They actually controlled how the world traded. And their secret? Well, it was the Suez Canal. Whoever owned that narrow waterway basically owned the shortcut between Europe and Asia. It was, honestly, a choke point of power. But instead of fighting to own the canals and straits that are already guarded by the US Navy, China is, doing something smarter. It's building land bridges to bypass them entirely. That's really the heart of China's Belt and Road Initiative, often called BRI. It's kind of like a modern version of the ancient Silk Road, but rebuilt with railways, tunnels, and highways. And it's not just a trade network, it's actually a way out of the US naval trap. Here's the hard truth. About 60% of China's oil travels by sea through the Strait of Malacca, right past American and Allied naval forces. And honestly, that's a massive vulnerability. So what's China's solution? Move the oil by land through friendly countries safe from warships and sanctions. No tankers, no carriers, no choke points. This Iran railway, it's honestly one of the most important links in that new Silk Road. A steel artery connecting China directly to Middle Eastern energy, without ever touching the ocean. Back in 2016, India thought it had a winning move. It signed a deal to develop Chabahar port in Iran, a strategic gateway to Central Asia, and a way to bypass its rival, Pakistan. The plan looked solid. Even the United States quietly supported it. Then in the year 2020, China made its move, a $400 billion deal with Iran. That's not a typo. $400 billion over 25 years. Infrastructure, oil, railways, ports, and more, all wrapped into one sweeping agreement. And here's the twist that, really turned heads in Washington leaked documents revealed a special condition from Iran. They didn't want US dollars anymore. They wanted China to pay in Yuan. Why? Because Iran was tired of being punished by dollar-based sanctions. And China had the money, the tech, and the political will to say yes. That train now rolling through the desert? Well, it's proof that China doesn't just play the game, it rewrites the rules. This isn't just a railway, it's actually a power play across continents. The new Iran-China railway splits into two major forks. First, the northern fork. It heads up through Kazakhstan, linking to existing networks that stretch all the way to Russia and Europe. It's a direct land corridor from China to European markets. No ships, no sea lanes, no NATO patrols. Then comes the southern fork. This one runs through Pakistan, connecting to the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, or CPEC. At the end of that path, Gwadar Port, a deep-sea harbor China has been quietly upgrading for years. Experts believe this port could become a Chinese naval base in the Indian Ocean. That's a nightmare scenario for India, and a serious challenge to the United States. But here's the real kicker. With this railway, China now has 3 land routes to Iranian oil. There's one heading north through Central Asia, another going south through Pakistan, and a third looping east back into its own territory. And the United States? Zero. No land access, no leverage, just a shrinking influence in a region where it once called all the shots. This isn't just trains on tracks. It's a geopolitical checkmate in slow motion. Oil runs the world. But here's what most people don't realize. It also props up the United States dollar. Since the 1970s, nearly all global oil has been sold in dollars. It's called the Petrodollar System, and honestly, it's a huge reason why the US economy has stayed on top. Countries need dollars to buy oil, so they store them, invest them, and borrow with them. But China? Well, it's quietly trying to break that system. And this railway is part of the plan. By 2023, China was buying 90% of Iran's oil. Almost all of it paid in yuan. Not dollars, not euros, just China's own currency. And because of US sanctions, Iran had no other choice. China got a 30% discount, paid in its own money, and didn't need to worry about the US blocking ships at sea, because now the oil moves by train. One Bloomberg analyst put it plainly, this railway is the physical backbone for ditching the dollar. And it gets even more serious. If Saudi Arabia, the world's top oil exporter, decides to join this land network and accept Yuan too, that's the doomsday scenario for the petrodollar. It would mean the world's most important commodity is no longer tied to American currency. And honestly, that could shake the very foundation of United States economic power. This isn't just about trains and trade. It's about the future of money, oil, and, well, who really runs the global economy. The railway didn't just change Iran's future. It's reshaping all of Central Asia. Take Uzbekistan, for example. A landlocked country once stuck between old Soviet routes and broken infrastructure. But since 2020, its rail traffic to China has surged by 700%. That's not a small jump, it's a transformation. Take Uzbekistan, for example. A landlocked country once stuck between old Soviet routes and broken infrastructure. But since 2020, its rail traffic to China has surged by 700%. That's not a small jump, it's a transformation. Goods that once took weeks to reach ports can now reach Chinese factories in just a few days. Uzbekistan isn't just moving cargo, it's moving toward a new economic orbit. Goods that once took weeks to reach ports can now reach Chinese factories in just a few days. Uzbekistan isn't just moving cargo, it's moving toward a new economic orbit. And it's not alone. Even Afghanistan, under the Taliban, sees what's happening. Despite decades of war and isolation, its leaders are now begging to be linked to the railway. Why? Well, because they know this steel lifeline means trade, power, and survival. This isn't just about convenience. It's about who controls the future of this region. And the answer is becoming clearer every day: China. Its railroads are turning deserts into trade hubs, isolated countries into partners, and honestly, enemies of the United States into friends of Beijing. It's like watching a new empire rise, not with armies, but with infrastructure. For over a century, the seas decided who ruled the world. British gunboats once controlled global trade, and today, it's U.S. aircraft carriers guarding oceans, choke points, and oil routes. By 2027, experts predict China's rail links to Iran could replace up to 40% of traditional oil tanker traffic. That means, well, less need for ships, ports, or even protection from U.S. naval forces. And by 2030, if land trade expands enough, U.S. sanctions could start to lose their bite. No more blocking shipping lanes, no more dollar-based pressure. Countries could trade freely by rail, in currencies of their choice, out of reach of American control. It's a radical shift, one that makes you ask, what happens to U.S. power in a world where cargo no longer depends on the sea? Some say we could be watching the early days of a global system where railways, not warships, decide influence. It's not science fiction, it's already starting. And the last time a shift like this happened, it took the British Empire by surprise. China didn't build this railway overnight. It took years of planning, deals, and honestly, a lot of quiet moves while the world was distracted. Now it's done. A direct land bridge from east to west, bypassing oceans, bypassing America, and building a new trade order in steel and stone. And the question that echoes louder each day is simple. Is the United States even paying attention? While Washington debates policies and protects sea lanes, China is building the future, one rail line at a time. This isn't just about Iran or oil or even China. It's about what kind of world we're heading toward and who's laying the tracks. Will the United States respond? Will it counter with its own rail projects, alliances, or tech-driven infrastructure? Or, is it already too late? Tell us in the comments, do you think the United States can catch up? And hey, smash that like button if you want a deep dive into China's railway coups in Africa. They might be even more shocking than this one.